Hey, FlimsyLunchTray here and welcome to World of Warships, where today I'm highlighting the Tier 10 American battle cruiser, the Puerto Rico, one of the dockyard ships we've had in the past. I haven't played it, or should I say featured it in a while. And I've been sitting on this replay and I've been needing to get it out. And kind of just in my mind was tackling a little bit, you know, how is Puerto Rico handling 2026 so far? And there's I think several things on my mind with that. I've done an upgrade commit or build video on the ship. I think it's the same from what I recall, but I'll tag that at the end of this video. So in World of Warships in 2026, I've already been talking about the difficulties in some past videos of just how this year is going, and to me this is among the worst years I can ever remember, especially when it comes to the randoms meta. Particularly with the meta, if you will, of blowout matches happening again and again and again, and it gets worse even over the summertime with lack of players continuing to seeing that decrease in the game and that. But basically, what is frustrating about World of Warships these days is positioning is becoming really important in terms of reading the map, increasingly so, where it's like, you know, like here I'm playing in more passively, like, oh, well, Flimsy, you're not really being aggressive. You need to get in there, right? And then okay, fine, I'll take my 80,000 hit points and I'll just push on in. And then you get focused out because you have a very large detectability range. You're a very large cruiser and you die. And, you know, teammates will say you're stupid for dying early. And then you hang out in the back, and then you get, you're being a really passive player, right? And they don't actually know what you've been contributing thus far, this, that, and the other. So there's kind of like the meta of World of Warships in 2026 is kind of difficult because players will kind of bully you. You're kind of danged if you do, danged if you don't. But Puerto Rico is honestly one of those ships because you don't have, you have a 13 conceal when you build for it. You don't, in World of Warships, when you first start playing, and this is increasingly true for particularly Puerto Rico, is you don't necessarily want to be among the first ships spotted in the game. You're larger, it's more easier to land shells. You can end up getting focused down relatively fast. Yes, you have 80,000 hit points, but you eat a decent amount of pin damage, penetration damage, which makes things frustrating. So you kind of, the way I've been trying to approach playing more and more cruisers here in World of Warships is to kind of take this, okay, how's this flank going? How's it going? Do I really need to push, or can I chill out for a little bit and see, particularly Puerto Rico with having these 12 305s, can I make some meaningful damage, right? You saw the two citadels we opened up with a Minotaur, just kind of waiting for that opportunity, catching him off guard. There are times where you shoot a broadside ship and you're hoping for lots of damage, and then you get like that 2300k salvo with two turrets. You know, here's another two turrets. You can see they spread out even more, 890. And other times where the main battery connects quite well on Puerto Rico, and you're going to see that throughout this battle. We kind of get a mix of best of both worlds. So let me just kind of break down how Puerto Rico plays, in my opinion. Because, you know, she's an American battle cruiser, if you will, she does pretty exceptionally well when it comes to supporting flanks and key objectives or capture zones. You know, looking for these opportunities like this Minnow player is kind of, he's just keeps showing lots of broadside. But being able to try to support your teammates with the 10-kilometer radar, you got a 5-kilometer hydro, you've got your repair parties, of course. So she's pretty great at supporting. You know, naturally you have a longer reload time here with Puerto Rico. If you build for it with 6 slot, it's like a 19.36 second reload time. But you can see I have top grade gunner going here in the bottom, and you've got adrenaline rush, which is making our reload a little bit faster. So Puerto Rico is this battle cruiser where you're really hoping to land your shots well, because when they don't land well, your the damage per minute can end up being quite low, effectively all said and done. So it's kind of, I wouldn't like say like, oh, you have a mini Vermont situation going on here. Like Vermont's more accurate, I'm pretty sure, than Puerto Rico. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I can pull it up here. Let's see, Sigma, Puerto Rico. So your Sigma is among the best, 2.2. Your vertical dispersion is among the worst. Your horizontal dispersion is also among the worst. So they gave you good sigma, but they nerfed the vertical and horizontal dispersion, which is why these guns can feel quite trollish sometimes. Like, I'm going to even get some citadels here later that ends up surprising me, and I'll point it out to you when that time comes. But we've effectively, you know, we took out the enemy destroyer over here. So now I get to push up and exert some influence. Utilizing islands, you know, regardless of what kind of cruiser you are, or maybe even other ships in the game, ends up becoming quite important here. But as my destroyer and my submarine player, if we look here, they're both pushing up. There's no reason for me to continue camping out back here on the backside of A. No, we push up. We support our cruiser. We support our destroyer player. And I think that's the big thing that frustrates a lot of destroyer players, especially when the cruisers are just being very passive and they're not there if they get caught out. So like here, I'm ready to take on this Minotaur as this Shimakaze is having to disengage. But we know that the Minotaur is a smoke minnow. I'm going to kill my throttle. I'm raiding here. I'm more closer to provide effective firing, if you will here. I'm not locked onto him yet. Now I'm going to be spam the M key because I just kind of want to get a glimpse here. And I'm trying to take a shot early because I'd like to get the kill. We don't. That goes to our Aberdeen teammate. But we take out the Minnow player, right? And that also makes life easier for the U4501, who may have got picked up on the Minotaur Hydro. So we also helped protect our submarine player as well. And then we're going to push up even more. We're going to apply pressure here on the Alaska. Also, 9305s, his horizontal and vertical dispersion is much better than mine. Pop a heal. And then we have the Minagumo who stepped out here. So I'm expecting torpedoes here. So you're going to see me play accordingly with the expectation that torpedoes are going to show up. But again, if I'd just been sitting on behind the island, you know, wouldn't have the opportunity to just pop the Minagumo on radar and get rid of him. Now, because I'm thinking the Minagumo's launch torps, I'm actually going to do a purposeful Natsu, meaning I'm going to ram the island here on the left. And I'm also trying to get all my guns here on the Alaska, DCP, the 2 fires. And we're going to get rid of him. I don't want Alaska to end up running up there and just sitting in J2 and just being like a distraction for the team. I would like to go ahead and get rid of him here, if at all possible. But Puerto Rico is, you know, when you're doing that type of team play style, when you push with your sub and your destroyer player, you know, they're doing the spotting coverage for you, which works out really well. And I'm there to support them if they need the help. So that's really the lost art of cruiser play or just team play in World of Warships these days, because it's basically everyone kind of plays in themselves, and it ends up being this 1 versus 23, if you will. So Puerto Rico, in my opinion, is a really good, decent at team support. You know, this 18.8 kilometer range on the main battery. You know, we've got the consumables between our hydro and our radar. And another thing I was trying to get to the point with the main battery is that your armor piercing salvo and your high explosive salvo is among the best in the game. So you have the hardest hitting salvos of any tier 10 cruisers in World of Warships. In addition, you bully with these hard hitting 305s, and the fact that when we talk about your survivability, your health, you're third in class. You come behind the Stalingrad, or technically you say even the second, because the Varese, Italian experimental cruiser that's not in the game right now. But, you know, the points aren't that far apart, as our Shimakaze just takes out the Pomeran. So we're kind of taking our time here. I want to get some shots here on the Iparenga. The goal here is I want to push the Iparenga away, so I don't have to deal with him, as I'm going to deal with the threat of enemy ships coming from Delta back into Bravo. And that kind of surprised me to get 2 citadels at that angle. So usually it's kind of a hard ship to sit. So I don't know if we got through the deck plating there or what exactly, but hey, it ended up working out. So let me more address the question of how do I feel Puerto Rico is doing here in 2026. Well, it's, you know, this game's going to be quite good, quite favorable for us here. I mean, it's not a blowout, right? You can see that for sure, but there's not a huge difference in points, not a huge difference in the kills either. But ends up being a lot of the situational. Where Puerto Rico ends up being like you feel like a pinata is if your flank, like your team collapses around you. That's really when Puerto Rico gets abused because of that larger concealment detection radius of that 13 kilometers. And your 80,000 hit points, and you just kind of feel like a big damage pinata as like 3 or 4 ships are breathing down your back, or there's a submarine or destroyer player on an enemy team that's keeping you spotted, so you're not able to effectively go dark. And then you're wishing, I wish I had maybe more DPM in this moment as I'm just slowly losing health. That's where it becomes more painful to play Puerto Rico when you just your team just collapses around you, as perhaps maybe most ships in the game, but it is Puerto Rico is kind of more not as favorable in that scenario where it's not like I'm a cruiser with has a lot of conceal or I can smoke up, as an example when talking about cruisers. You know, whether it's kind of pushing in and bullying with your hit points in the 305s, the other thing that Puerto Rico does quite well is if you can allow the enemy team to play into you, like that was a frustrating salvo, really 2 overpins on that Rustalon, is letting enemy team push into you and just work your main battery guns. I find worked really well, and so I utilize that whole strategy, if you will, here with the enemy team wrapping around Delta coming into our Bravo cap. But you know, the other thing that really sucks about Puerto Rico is you're a larger cruiser, you don't have great concealment, you don't have the greatest maneuverability because you're more this battle cruiser, where you end up suffering more to submarines, and particularly in addition to increased like hybrid planes. In addition to the Dutch cruisers of the game with the HE airstrike, and now we have a German destroyer with HE airstrike, the ZH1. That's where I notice more of the pain when Matchmaker is not as friendly or your team collapses around you. So there's sometimes I'm like, that was felt Puerto Rico's. This is the strength I remember the ship having. And then things go upside down, your destroyer dies immediately on your flank, and then you just end up like getting tortured by the enemy push that ends up forming on that side. So how to play, or the advice I would give in playing Puerto Rico in 2026 is you really have to read the map of what's happening. You push with your team, they kite, you kite. You have to be aware of, if you know where an enemy submarine is, like I'm trying to be more mindful of where this archer fish might potentially be. I'm having to be mindful that there's probably torps coming, so that's why I'm playing with my throttle and going up, as this guy's playing with his throttle, which is kind of dumb to be doing that right in front of me, because he's going to be starting off slow here, even though I overled the first salvo. They just have to take your time. I find what works best at Puerto Rico is having patience. To punish, looking for opportunities to punish with these longer reloading 12, 3, and 5mm guns, looking to see what's happening on the mini-map, or there's more other ships like, like Salem, Minnow, other ships that can kind of grab the bull by the horns and kind of go for it, if you will. Where Puerto Rico is more the ship, be patient and be looking for opportunities and be trying to read the mini-map and having situation awareness rewards the most out of it, because there's just other classes in the game now that torture Puerto Rico more for her larger size and lack of conceal. That being said, I think it's still fun to play Puerto Rico. You just have to be mindful of the things I highlighted. So 1.3 million credits with 189,000 damage, 3 destroyed, 9 citadels. First grade efficiency, we got Confederate, so we activated our Halsey, you saw that, the high caliber. We even got 9 defended ribbons, so we were helping prevent capture of our cap there, particularly there at the end. 2,334 base XP and topping the team. So what looked not as great at a very slow start to the battle ends up being quite decisive as the game goes on, and that's usually cruisers play best in the last half of the game. It just sucks when there's not a last half of the game anymore in World of Warships with the meta there. Metagumo, big kill there, 76 hit points for that. And then 52,000 at Iparenga with those citadels contributing a lot there. So we didn't use much of the high explosives. There's a lot of armor piercing, and because 305s, even if we shoot a destroyer, it's still pretty impactful and meaningful, and we can use our gun feeder swapping in between. So, but I mean, if you notice, honestly, you don't see, or at least I don't on NA particularly, you don't see a lot of Puerto Rico these days. And I would just say that it's mainly more due to her lack of conceal and feeling like that she can be a damage pinata at times. Where in the meta of World of Warships, where you have complete throws, stampedes where the game's over within 5 to 6 minutes, Puerto Rico doesn't really favor that play style. It's not as enjoyable. It just kind of feels more of like a frustrating experience compared to maybe other cruisers where you could have pumped out more damage with your damage per minute in your positioning, so on and so forth. So, but playing Puerto Rico with your team and supporting is really the best way to play her in 2026. Your team kites, you kite, team pushes, you push with them. Just try to be mindful of team play. That's really where Puerto Rico shines. So. That being said, I hope you liked today's video. If you did, give a thumbs up. If you didn't, give a thumbs down. Subscribe if you do see more. If you subscribe, thanks so much. I appreciate it. Thank you who support me, and I hope you have a great weekend. Take care.